Easy E, how are we?
Shawnee, come here. I went into the mall today, right?
Right. Let's just
I
clarify here,
walked
Dubai.
I walked by an Adidas shop. Adidas, whatever you have them.
Right.
And in the door, they had the Dubai Marathon special.
Oh.
I was like, oof. It was a pair of Adidas carbon shoes,
Hmm.
the Dubai Marathon running shorts, Dubai Marathon running t-shirt, Dubai Marathon running jacket, all for a combination. I had a look. There was tickets available.
Oh.
It's on this 7th of January. And I did something I haven't done in a while. I said no.
Oh man, what a letdown.
And it
we
wasn't without reason from the better half going, no, you did this for Cork. No, you did this before. I was like, yeah, but look, it's 2 weeks away. I could get a couple of runs in.
and how much was that? Like I thought you were going to go with how much all the gear and stuff together was, or how
It
much and
was €220 for the
you get all
brand
the
new
gear
pair. All that gear, yeah.
and the carbon.
And yeah, I forget the name of it, Manny. That's Pro 13 Super Duper Run
But
Faster on the roadie.
carbon runners alone are worth that price.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
you're not tempted. I suppose they're probably cheaper without it, but you're not tempted just to sign up for the marathon and just take all the gear and away you
Well, I
go.
could have. This is
It's
the
better than
thing.
double that this year for you.
This is the thing. I could have bought all the gear and not done the marathon. It was just for
Yeah,
sale. So,
that's mad.
but there was a little bit of stolen valor kind of feeling. I was like, I couldn't really wear all that. But then for the
Have,
price of it, it was really, really good kit. But yeah, and remember we talked about the whole change of name thing and all that. There's tickets still on sale with 2 weeks to go for the 10K. So I think we might sign up and do the 10K in January,
um,
just to get a feel for it.
what time is 10K over there? Is it like a 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning start because of
I
how
think
hot it
so.
gets?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
it's
wow!
early. Because the temperature at night is 26 and
Right.
during the day 31. So it's early morning, kind of like an Ira, but nothing is night really. Like there's so many lights here. It's not sunshine, but it might as well be
But
daytime.
would
Like
that
it's not a
be?
night run.
It'd feel warmer in Cork though, right?
Yeah,
Or what's
yeah,
the heat?
probably
Is the
would.
heat is humid or?
It's something different though when the sun's not directly on you. It's warm, but it's not. You're not burning. Like that
Yeah.
that kind of feeling. But yeah, it won't be easy. I've done a couple of 20-minute runs on the treadmill, and like the aircon is set to like 22, and like I am sweating hard. It
We're
is. It has been a big adjustment. So it's yeah.
we're
It
we're
it is a
brushing
very different kind of Christmas for me.
we are brushing very quickly over the fact that that's the first time you've talked about you training since like the third last week of October we did the Ironman. So Eric Lawless is right back at it after a 2 month vacation away from training. You're right back at it. Fair play. How was that first week back going to the gym and just being like, were you just like, oh, what am I doing in here? What am I gonna do? Or did you know bit of a full body workout, bit of the
Yeah,
treadmill, a bit of everything in and out, or
I
bicep curls for
resorted
40
I
minutes?
res I resorted back to my go-to every time I don't know what to do. It's this same workout I used to do probably back in the days with you. It was back and by day, chest, shoulders, try day, add in a little bit of legs in between because I don't want to do a leg day.
Bro
So
splits.
I have gone back to the very basics. It's been really, really nice. To be honest, yeah, I suppose the interest isn't there yet to be running for an hour. And the heat, like the heart rate is, I suppose fitness comes down to it as well, but the heat is just like it's just hard to get used to at the minute for me. But it's I'm actually enjoying the level of difficulty. Like normally after 5K, I'm like, this is kind of enjoyable. After 5 minutes on the treadmill, I'm not used to the treadmill, haven't done it in a while either.
Hmm.
After like 5 minutes, I'm like, oh my God, how long has gone? How long has gone? It's kind of like holding a plank.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's happening way too early. And I'm kind of like 20 minutes. I'm like, I'm fed up of this. I'm dripping sweat, and everyone around me is just walking on treadmills. I'm like the only one that runs. So, but look, there's a triathlon club that I found nearby. They have training sessions pretty much once a day, twice a day. So my aim will be to link in with them and let someone else set the pace and
Brilliant.
just switch off the brain and get involved with it. And it's going to be nice for me. It's something I haven't done is be involved in a club, and just train with other people around me. So it's but look, it's just been nice to start moving again. It's weights, like I haven't had DOMs like that in a long time, but it's nice to be lifting weights again and getting back into it. And look, what we're here to talk about as well, like setting our stall out for the year ahead and having a look at what will happen next year. I think 2 weeks notice for a marathon having in that heat, I think it will be a little bit stupid, but yes. 2025, the Abu Dhabi Marathon followed by the Dubai Marathon, there's 3 weeks in the difference, so there's 2 marathons there that can be ticked off very quickly in the next year, so
the end of next year,
something to set the sights onto and look forward to and just see where we end up.
I feel the exact same way with training. I'm adding 1K a day to my training. So like an Advent challenge. So day 1, it's 1K. Day 2 is 2K. And I'm not lying. I'm not even saying this for a podcast or for effect. Like the end of that 1K or that 2K, I'm like, oh, thank God that's over. And I felt that through 3, 4, 5. It's gotten to the point now where like the last couple of days has been enjoyable in the minute. But that last kilometer or 2 is just, oh my God, would this kind of just end? Now, I'm glad I did it over there's another variation of it called the Marco-a-thon, and that's basically 5K a day for 24 days. But with Dunedin coming up, I need to get my mileage up at 300K in the month. But I'm starting to notice when I'm looking back at my Strava and my MyZone and stuff like that, my pace is roughly the same. Some days, if I do like a night run and a morning run, like I did this weekend, I did the 16K on the Saturday night, and the Sunday morning, I did the 17K. My heart rate actually drops, the pace drops a little bit, but for the most part, I could see, looking back at it, I was averaging 150, 155 BPM to start. And now I'm down to 140. I'm like, okay, I'm getting a bit fitter. I still feel like, oh my God. Bit of pain and sore, but this week now is a challenging week. So I'm averaging pretty much a half marathon between now and Christmas Eve. But while it may not be the smartest thing to do in terms of 10% mileage per week, there's definitely been times where I'm like, I really don't want to go out and do this right now. Like last week, I was after you actually, after I was seeing you off Dubai, went got a bit of food, but came back to the house, and as I was coming back, I was like, Niamh, when we get back, like within 5 minutes, I need to go. And she's like, I'll walk the dogs. So grand. So we're both out of the house within 5 minutes. Came into the back kitchen, big roast dinner on the table. I'm like, Niamh, get me out of here quick. No. Get me out of here quick. Get me out quick. And it was the same yesterday. We're halfway around the country, fucking getting stuff for the house and all the rest. And I came back at 6, 7 o'clock, and I hadn't got it done that morning. I was like, I need to get out. And I was driving to the fucking car park was full because mass is full this time of year. Must be something else on that church. And I couldn't get in. I had to go down to the local supervalue, or Spar, whatever it is. Just like, right, mark it out from there and get the run in. Running through Nace is cool, but not seeing everyone coming in and out of the bars and stuff like that, and bouncers and me with a big hoodie and head on me keep on going. I was like, oh, I could be doing so many other things right now. But the great thing about it is it's kept me accountable because I'm posting every day on it. It's like I have to get out and get another run in. Otherwise, it just takes one person to message me after a day going, hey, you didn't get that running. I saw in Strava. You failed. You messed up. You didn't do what you said you were going to do. And that's enough to drive me out the door being like, I've said I'm going to do this. I have to own up. God, I hope I do it now to Christmas Eve, because after saying that, I've still got 7 runs left.
and that is the power of accountability. I do. I'm not going to lie. I'll give credit for an Ironman on the fact that I said it on the podcast. But it's definitely, when we have up to nearly 1,500 listeners a week now, you kind of have to stand by what you say. But we've had some great guests. We've had some great insights for the year. A lot of which I know we've got great messages over the last couple of days of people who've been inspired or have taken certain nuggets that is going to carry them through. Me, myself, on the treadmill, I was running at a 6:30, wondering when it was all going to end. Just had Anthony in the back of his head, in my head, going, just run. Just run. What's wrong with you? Just run. And then I just hit stop. I was like, no, fuck you, Anthony. You don't own my thoughts. I'm getting on. But no, look, it's been a great year. We put it out there. And today, when we get into after the intro music, we're going to go through some of everyone's tips and nuggets from everyone who's listened or took part in the podcast. We've had over 70 responses, which we were not expecting. It's a sign of the times that the podcast is growing. So if we miss you, we apologize. We have so many to get through. We picked out some nuggets that we think suit for coming into the new year as well. And I suppose, Sean, enough about us. We're hanging in there by a thread, and we'll kick into, I suppose, looking at the tips and nuggets from all of the listeners.
Intro music, let's go.
So, Sean, let's be honest, I'm not very good at the old Insta hunt. So I didn't see any of the responses coming in. I was like, geez, we didn't, this is gonna flop big time. And then you were like, oh, you just hit that other little button there. And then I was like, mother of God. So you have done a hell of a lot more homework than I've done.
Nice way to put me in a spot there, Eric, for that one. So what we did was, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, first of all, I want to give a couple of shout outs to those who have reached out to us over the year. Although people probably didn't reach out in this part, or people don't feel like they've a lot to give. Anyone who has tried anything, anyone who's put on a pair of shoes and got out the door for anything, you have something to give. You're part of a community that we're building, and everyone has a different experience. No two experiences are ever the same. And that's why what we try and do is bring a wide variety of people and opinions on, and you can just pick and choose and make your own mix and bake your own kind of running cake from all the ingredients we give. And for those who do reach out to us, thanks for reaching out to us. Those who reach out and say thanks for the help. I'm running my first half marathon, which we absolutely love. You know who you are. But thanks very much. It's great to be part of other people's journey, and it drives us for sitting here every week and getting guests on and talking about it, and from all levels, from all parts of the world, and it's absolutely brilliant. But we'll kick off with a couple of top tips, Sean, if you have any.
Yeah, one of the things we've been preaching about all year, we got this from Joe Milltown, at Joe Milltown, that said use HR training this year, slow down on down runs, more enjoyable, and took 15 minutes off the marathon time. We got a few others on that as well, but that's class. That the slowing down thing, because we talk about it so much, it's hard to relate to the thoughts we had beforehand about slowing down to go faster. But like I was talking to a couple people this week in the gym, and it's the same thing. It's like, just slow down. It's like, no, but I feel like I can go faster. Like, yeah, I know, but slow down and you will last longer and keep building love from there. So that's a great one to say. He also, another comment says, love the pod too, by the way. Thank you very much for that. Kevin English had a fair few things, so I want to get through to that one. His tips for next year is to write down goals for the first half and the second half of the year, and to keep things simple, stay consistent, and remember, one bad run or workout doesn't define you, which I 100% agree with.
Well, that one really resonates with me, because a lot of times, well, for us over previous years, it's been, well, what's your plans for next year? Dublin Marathon, and then I do nothing until April. So, and I think that's something that I've only really realized now, particularly with, okay, we've done the Ironman, and I'm setting my sights on the next couple of goals and what I want to do. And now is the time to start prepping, because in the Northern Hemisphere, it's the off season. It's coming into the building phase, and the whole winter miles for summer smiles and all that kind of rhetoric that we're used to. And it's something that I kind of need to get on, because even though it's 23 degrees right now at midnight here, like, this is the winter. This is the time where it's actually acceptable to be outdoors and cycling and swimming, and the water temperature is at an acceptable level that you can swim in and stuff. So on all the opposite scales to at home. So it's important even for me to say, right, well, what's going to happen by April? I need to start saying, well, what foundation am I going to have, or what's a target to get to by that stage? And it's something I'm not used to. I'm used to just picking something at the end of the summer, giving myself that lackadaisy approach into the summer. And I think if I'm going to take anything serious, it has to start now. And that's something for anyone who's looking at goals. It doesn't have to be a massive goal. It doesn't have to be a marathon in April, but set a goal. Set a 5K. If you want to work on your speed work over the next little while, a 5K, a 10K, and set a couple of goals to elaborate on that. Like, that's what we're talking about in terms of stuff that's attainable, but keeps you honest, keeps you consistent.
One of the things I like doing is not only looking forward, but just having a quick look back at the previous year to see what goals you had set from last year throughout the year. Because it could tell a couple of things. It tell if you're on track with your training, everything's going well, but it can also tell if things aren't going right and why you're picking certain goals. So if you look over the last couple of years, you may have, I don't know, maybe it's a hold a plank for as long as you can. And then you realize it's been 2-3 years and it's like, haven't really done anything with that goal. That could be a goal that you're thinking about doing just for the sake of writing down a goal rather than something you really want to do. Or it could be a goal that's just really, really bugging you. Just for some reason you haven't got it done, you need to change your training. For example, for me, it's getting that sub 25k. That has been the goal at the start of this year, along with getting the 100 miles in 24 hours. And that's a fail on both of me, but I'm proud of how far I got in the 24 hours. And now I know, okay, next year, going for that again, I know how my training needs to change to get better at that. Looking back at what I did this year, what I did good and wrong. The same the sub 25k. I know where I put too much emphasis on different things that I didn't really want, but I just enjoyed doing the time. But I was like, if I really want this goal, I need to just, for me, it's to be honest, just be more consistent running and just maybe take out a gym session or 2 a week, and just instead of being 4 or 5 times the gym, it's only 2 or 3 times. And it's those gym sessions where it's pissing rain outside. I'm like, bicep curls today is good. No, you got to get out there and get a 30, 45 minute slow run in or something like that, and build from there. And I was interested in listening the other week to one of our guests we had recently, name's completely blanking me, which I really want to edit out. Our most recent guest we had in the podcast, Mick. Sorry, Mick. He talked about how once a week having that progression run, and that's all he wanted to do. I'm like, that's appealing to me, because every time I try to do, intervals and stuff like that, I just feel like I'm dying of debt. Whereas that gradual run and increase, and me and you have talked before how after 5-6k we feel good, and now it's time to go. Whereas intervals at the 5 or 6k it's done. Now it could be just a case I need to warm up more, but a lot of stuff we've had in these questions, which we get back to, is just being consistent, keeping it simple, and doing what you're used to doing.
And I know we kind of jest that, we are average athletes and we interview fantastic athletes, but we do take nuggets. And even though I was dying on a treadmill for a very short time, I did resort back to Mick's comments, Anthony's comments, Kevin's comments, Celine's comments about running slow and be happy to run slow. There's people who have given me little nuggets the entire way. And when I was on that, I was like, what do I feel like doing? I was like, I feel like just taking a handy here for a second. And then after a minute, I was like, this is dragging on. I need to do something different every 30 seconds. So it was, right, we're going to go quicker now, quicker again. So every time the clock was hitting a 30-second, we'd up it by 5 until I reached the point that I thought I was going to die. And I was like, right, back to the start. And just trying to keep that going to a rhythm that felt good. The workout, in hindsight, over 20 minutes, moving over those that pace variation was still an okay workout. It wasn't expert, but it was at the end of a weight session, getting back into it. A lot of things that before I'd be like, you didn't run an hour, so did you really do anything? But
yeah,
again, same as Ricky's, like, just do something. And I just did something, and I did something to a level that felt I could eat an ice cream that night, and my little reward for doing it, and the positive reinforcement for me is always food. So it's little nuggets from everyone, and when you put that together, there is something there in just listening to your body, and getting it done.
Yeah, and to sum up with 2 quick ones here, at Alan_Butler was like, advice I learned this year with running is consistency. Don't worry about type of session, just run. And our mate, especially your mate Tom Dixon too, said listen to your body. And sometimes you need to do that. Sometimes if training plan's there for extreme run or mad tempo and you're not feeling it, maybe a slow run that way is the best to go, as long as not every single time you do a slow run. That's the difference between listen to your body and just being lazy with it.
Yeah, and listen to your body. Like, if I listened to my body every day, I wouldn't get off the couch, to be honest. But there is that element, and we keep saying it, like, there is, particularly in this thing, and the consistency is important only if you listen to your body. If you're going out feeling a niggle, it's time to just go, right, knock it on the head. Tomorrow, we need to be able to train tomorrow. And if you can carry that attitude into any of this long distance stuff or whatever it is you're trying to do, if you are able to train the next day, fatigue is different. There's, fatigue, rest is important. Rest is part of recovery. But if you're feeling sorry for yourself, that's not listening to your body. But if you're feeling, that's not right, and you will know the difference, that's when you really need to listen to the body. And fatigue is one element. You do need to listen to the body. If you're like, no, I'm actually feeling like I've done enough, then you have done enough. But that next day, never, I suppose everyone always looks for that. What's the bullet point and how to manage this? And I always say that it's never let it happen 2 days in a row.
Yeah.
So if you're on a diet and you go for your pints and your fish and chips on the Friday, Saturday, you're back on it. Never then go, well, I've messed up Friday, so I guess what's happening Saturday and Sunday. Likewise with your workouts, if you plan on doing something small as we get into resolution season, you're 20 minutes every day. Don't be, I have to do it every day. If you miss a day, like if your golden rule in the new year was whatever I choose to do, never let it lapse more than 2 days in a row, then you're on a good way to be consistent. You're on a good way to achieve anything you want to achieve, because that will breed consistency, it'll breed good habits, and that positivity will carry you through pretty much any goal you want to achieve.
Yeah, it's that 80-20 rule, not only with running slow 80% of the time, it's also with goals and being consistent. If you can get, 80-20 is 5-6 days a week. If you're doing that at a 7, that's where consistency comes in, and more people have said that as well. Couple of interesting ones on this as well, because it's right up my alley. At Jack Butler 185 says strength training and nutrition is the key to staying injury free. Speaker from experience. And then at David J Coleman 1 says cross training is king. Took 50 minutes off marathon time since taking up triathlon last year. Your thoughts on cross training, particularly strength training, because that was something you did a little bit of, but not a lot for the Ironman, right in saying that?
Yeah,
and I guess the podcast is the same thing. Wouldn't do too much gym training. Now, I'd be a big gym head, just a little bit different us doing that.
I suppose for me, like the idea of going back into the gym is it's more the prehab, it's more stability work, it's more like I know we're saying there's the disco muscle work as well, like and the upper body work, which I kind of neglected through that entire last 6 months of the year. Like, and I love doing my upper body work and the pushes. It just didn't happen, because obviously time constraints and everything else. But what I find is for just a mental focus to be doing something different, I think it's excellent. I think when you can add in that strength and conditioning training, like most of the professional athletes, they're not just cycling, running, swimming. They're doing a session with a strength and conditioning coach. They're working on parts of their game that's going to trigger different muscles that are going to help them, build the endurance. All of that is part of the entire package. It's not just the basics. Now, there's people out there that have never had strength and conditioning, and they crunch phenomenal numbers and they do amazing things. But for me, I like that whole approach. I like the side that has me doing a little bit of functional movement and this and that to loosen out the hips, or add in a little bit of yoga, because I'm not the full-time athlete. I'm just trying to live a lifestyle that keeps me functional, and will hopefully injury-free. And ultimately, that's the aim of the game, is to have an active lifestyle, stay injury-free, and be good enough that I can be proud of it. And that's one element in terms of cross training. I suppose in terms of marathon times, my best marathon time was the year I focused on triathlon. And I suppose there's numerous ways, and people can say different things. But for me, when we're talking about endurance, being on the bike is less impact on the legs, but you're still working in zones that is building your endurance. And like, cycling is great, but it will never replace running, because running is, and it will never replace swimming. But when you are equally practicing each of them enough, then the cardiac kind of benefit is there, but you're still working on each discipline. So I found, in terms of taking because we were doing, when we just did marathons only, or like you're doing now, Sean, it's mad miles, and some of our guests are doing mad miles. Whereas for me, I kind of enjoyed that. Oh, thank God I don't have to run today. I just have to cycle for 2 hours. Like it's a mad way to think, but it just mentally switches it up. And it's the same with the Ironman. By the time I wanted to smash my bike off a wall, it was like, oh, well, now you just have to run a marathon. I was like, oh, at least it's something different. Like it's that, for me, it's the variety of training and what that variety brings to you in terms of what it means in your home life or in your work life or whatever you need it to be. And that's why I like it. And on my off days to feel like I'm doing something, that's where I feel like doing 45 minutes of yoga and a little bit of stretching I feel like,
Hope
yeah,
so.
no, I've worked on my training today. I've bettered myself today, and it is true. You have just because I haven't ran as hard as I can for 4 kilometers or 5 kilometers, 20 kilometers. It is a case of I worked on me, I worked on the lifestyle, I worked on the habit, I worked on the consistency, and cross training for me is just the best thing to keep it interesting.
Yeah, keep it interesting, keeps consistent, keeps going. Like my best time last year doing the 3:30 back in 2022. My strength training was on par with my running up until the last 6, 7 weeks. And then it's like, right, it's time to go with the running. I need to build that up. And the strength training and sessions dropped. So like I would use what we have in work, like an in-body thing testing. So it shows your body fat, your body fat free mass, it shows your muscle mass, it shows your overall weight. And the weight would slowly drop. But the last 6 weeks, the muscle mass was dropped. So while my weight would drop, some of that would be muscle mass and my fat, but I'd actually be, I'd have more fat on me in those build up in those last 6 weeks because of the strength training in the gym has stopped. My weight wouldn't change too much actually, but my fat would go up just because it's been all running and less gym work. But the goal is to get better at the marathon at the end of the day. And then once it's gone, it's like, okay, usually it's like, right, let's build back up in the gym because I do miss it in those last 6, 7 weeks where I'm not doing as much and not as intense in the gym because I need more hours in the road if I'm going to get a faster time. So it's finding that balance throughout the year. I know September, October, I'm not going to look my best. Like I have an old thing on my Instagram where I did over the course of a year and I probably looked my best in a way around April, May, June that year. And then slowly the body fat came back on as I was building towards the marathon from there. It's just mad that like we had Nick Genn on last week and he was talking about losing weight, which is definitely true. You can lose weight with pens and nutrition, with running and stuff as well. But muscle mass, stuff like that comes into a little bit when it comes to strength training. So for me to lose weight, not an extreme way, I would bring strength training into it because that's when the body fat goes down and the muscle mass go up while your weight was slowly declining. But it takes something like an in-body to see that so you can see your progression. Whereas if you just look at the weighing scales, that's not as noticeable. It depends on how much weight you have to lose.
Yeah, look, it's one of the things I've learned over the years and through different nutrition courses and stuff that like muscle mass eats more calories than going for your runs. And that's why when you see all these bodybuilders with next to nothing percentage body fat, it's not easy for them because they have to maintain that. But you know, the 40 hours of treadmill versus weights plus that cross training element, that can have huge benefits for people who are setting themselves weight goals. But I'd be, you know, like the weighing scales can be your friend or can be your biggest enemy. Like I've stood on it some mornings 3 kilos heavier than I stood on it today before. It just depends on what you ate, what you did, what state your body is in, recovery. You know, there can be so many factors. But what I always found to be the biggest one was the mirror. Because if you're consistent, the mirror won't lie after 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks. And the biggest, I suppose, when people stick at something and say consistent, you won't notice it in yourself till someone says it to you. Jesus, you training or something, you know? And then you're like, yeah. Then you can start talking about all the marathons you're going to run. But it's licensed to speak about it. But yeah, no, it's just for those who are looking to set those kind of goals. You know, be realistic about what it is you're setting yourself, and be realistic about the measuring stick. You know, and what you're measuring yourself against. You know, and I'd be quite harsh on myself in terms of certain elements, but then equally I'll eat a burrito and not worry about, you know, like it's,
Yeah.
I'm always going to lose that battle because I'm a foodie, but but the reason I train and do what I do is to enjoy those finer times. So for me, setting a weight goal, it's just not realistic. But for me, setting a mirror goal or a time goal is more realistic because I have to get there. And that might mean I have to shed some weight to do that. So that's how I kind of work it in terms of that. And definitely for the next little while, it's more mirror goals. We spoke about coming up to the Ironman. I knew I had to be 88, 89 kilos to be hitting the times on the bike for the power I had. I wasn't that. And when the race day came up, I reaped what I sowed, you know, and that is just going to a wedding holiday 2 weeks before the Ironman probably wasn't a good idea. But it is exactly the goals you set need to be kind of attainable for the lifestyle you're living. Because, and look, we'll go on another tangent. When we're setting goals and looking to New Year and looking at these other things, you're not going to change everything overnight. You know,
No.
you're not going to become a new person. You have to kind of work on one thing, and that's where, like, setting a realistic goal, other things tend to follow with it. You know, like if anything, I always say change one thing, and when you get that right, then change the next thing. And I think people take on too many wish list stuff, and I do call it wish list because it is just a wish list. You've no intention of doing the work to get there. But what I like to say is work on a stage list. You know, like step one, set goal to run 10K, 10K training plan on Garmin or whatever it is, or get a coach. You have done a fantastic step. Then the other stuff of losing weight and eating better and this, that, they'll all come naturally.
Yeah.
And by setting one really attainable, realistic goal, you'll tick off 6 of the wish list that you would have just thrown out there anyway. And it's only then when you look back on things, you can go, oh my God, it made a major difference in my life and the lifestyle I want to live.
But it has to be something you want to do. Like, let's say 10K or 5K, whatever it is. If, like, for example, you hear me a couple minutes ago talking about, well, strength training, in my opinion, is the best way to lose weight or whatever. If you're like, oh, I hate strength training, I hate the gym, I can't stand the gym, it's like you're probably not going to get into the gym. You're probably more interested in running because, well, you're listening to the Any Given Run Day podcast. So maybe running is the answer for you. And to your point, build towards 10K, staying consistent with that, and nutrition and else will follow through. Moving on from there, a couple of quick ones here in this one before we move on to the second part of this podcast. I want to hear your opinion on this one. At Easy Being Green, I can't use the words today. He was on the podcast before. Simon says you're not taking enough salt, not even close.
He's never had a spice bag the day before a race.
That's what I've heard before, though, with the with people doing marathons and stuff like that. Halfway through, take a salt tab and away you go. Don't think I did it this year because I knew it wasn't on in terms of times and stuff. I did suffer, but I can't say it's because of salt tab. But when I did get my 330, I did take a salt tab halfway through. And you've used salt tabs before, right, haven't you?
Yeah, I've used them right and I've used them wrong. And again, it comes down to the individual. You know, like it's different strokes for different folks. I'm a heavy sweater. So for me, they're essential. Whereas, but if I can be taking them in foods, I tend to fare out a hell of a lot better. You know, like the salt.
But you're not doing that during a race, though.
No.
I suppose it doesn't say during a race, not during a race, to your point as well, though.
Yeah, and like, and the important thing from a nutritional factor is salt is something that has to be balanced. You know, like it's equilibrium. Too much, not good. Too little, not good. So it's finding what that balance is for you. You know, if you're finding yourself cramping, if you're finding, like, these are all signs that you're probably not taking on enough isotonics, salts, everything else to kind of fuel the body away from those kind of cramps. Like there's a lot of different factors. And oddly enough, since I've started being more disciplined with my nutrition early on in the day, I haven't noticed cramps. Like I didn't cramp once in the Ironman but how much did I eat and drink? I ate and drank to my heart's content during that race. And I suppose my attitude to running, but then we've had guests in the previous weeks that have gone, I go with 2 gels and I'll see you at the finish line. You know, and it's just, it is something that you have to trial. But like the best thing is you will know, like, if you do have a salty meal or a Thai meal or a curry or something that has a high salt content, and you'll know that dehydrated kind of feeling the next day. You'll feel it if you go training with it. You'll start to notice what too much salt feels like when you go training, because you'll be actually gasping. So for me, that was a very simple way of learning what's too much salt, what's too little salt. The salt tabs, again, for me, on sweaty days, they're good, but you have to be careful. You know, you can take too much salt, you know, and it can have a dangerous effect. So it's just be careful of the ad hoc, I should just lash 2 of them into you there, you'll be grand. You know, like you have to kind of trial these things as you're doing your training. And like Simon's doing long races, 60k, 70k,
He's doing the same work, too
100%.
fast. Yeah.
That is something I would be factoring in, because you're sweating over that length of time. You can only carry a certain amount of equipment, and salt tablets are light. There's always going to be a water station, so you can dilute what you're taking on. Um, so it is something to practice with. And it's also something that has to come with a caution as well. Just be very careful with the dosages. I've seen people taking salt tablets on 10Ks, and
Right.
I'm scratching my head. It's not. It's for me. It's not. You're not going long enough or hard enough to be justifying a salt tablet. And that's where I'm saying be careful of. I suppose the locker room nutritionist is going to get you through a race, because everyone is different. My chicken fried rice the morning of is going to be someone else's porridge. It's going to be someone else's fasted run, someone else's banana. It is thing. And what I found, and one factor I'm going to give credit to, is the banana. I don't know how many bananas I ate that day, but it served its purpose to not need salt tablets or magnesium or anything else, or your potassium. So you're getting it in amounts that you should probably never eat in a day, but on the day that was in it served its purpose. So yeah, it's something for everyone, and try nutrition, and try and do it in as cheap a way as possible. Home make stuff, maybe start trying making your own little I don't know, protein power balls or whatever it is you're going to try for the year. But it's something, I suppose, if I was setting a goal, it'd be experiment with it, and try it. So use the early races or the early runs to kind of see, what do I need and what do I not need,
One last one in responses, and it was actually, it's funny enough, because one of the comments as well, we had this was a physio recommendation, lads, need not ride since DCM and have signed up for Belfast. Doesn't say where they're from though, so I don't know exactly how to give a physio recommendation, but maybe if people would recommend a physio through running and stuff like that, they may be able to put in the comments to post tomorrow to put that up. Might help them out. But we had one of the comments that talked about how I haven't got that part in front of me, how having physios and stuff and just keeping check of the body was to help them keep going with their running.
Yeah, I suppose it's important to check in. I suppose like you are an engine, you are a machine yourself, and like every so often an NCT has to happen whether you like it or not, and you're going to fail on the lights whether you like it or not sometime as well. So it's in a way like you look after yourself to a point, but then in terms of physio recommendations, there are good ones, there are bad ones. There are those when you go in with, oh, this isn't right, and it's like, oh yeah, more glute raises for you. And that's it depends on who you do. I find the best sports therapists or physios I've worked with are those who run, because there's an element of understanding. Now there are other physios who are involved in sport and GE who are excellent at every sport and understanding. But I have found, particularly when it came to a knee niggle and you go to someone who runs and they're like, yeah, that's just this, let's do this. And all of a sudden you're getting electric needling, and then you're squared away 2 weeks later, and I've been in that situation.
Your knee injury was, because I remember saying this before, and a few people know to running, it was actually the inside the leg. You were told more so your adductor and stuff like that, weren't you?
Yeah, so the inside.
Now this might be this person's stuff, but this what was your situation? A few others we know to running.
Yeah, so if you can imagine, you're sitting with your back against the wall, but you're sitting on the floor, if that makes sense, right? And most people, when they're sitting comfortably against the wall, they'll have their knees kind of at the 90-degree angle. You're kind of sitting up. So if you were to imagine straightening out your legs, and if you were to put your hand underneath your knee and try and push your knee to the ground, so essentially the muscle that does that movement, that straightening movement, was essentially non-existent. So that was messing up the alignment of my knee through the run, which was putting pressure on the tendon on the outside. And that was causing pressure through the IT band all the way down into the tendon. And then all of a sudden I was getting runner's knee. So it was getting worse over time, all because one little muscle wasn't doing its job because the other stuff was carrying it, and that's why it was getting sore and sore and sore over time. So I had to spend time pretty much doing the movement I've described, putting a tea towel under it, my hand under it, just straightening my leg and relaxing, straightening my leg. And I was doing reps at 20, 30, 40, 50, and I've never had an issue since. But again, it was a very specific injury to me, but something I never would have considered, because to look at my legs with the cycling and all, it was like, oh my God, like there's no way that muscle's not working. But when I'm cycling, your leg never locks out. Now, when you run, it doesn't lock out either. But that full movement wasn't exactly happening, and the same with the running. And there's just the imbalance in, I suppose, the tracking, I suppose, of the knee was just not right, and everything else was under pressure to try and keep it there. So that was one injury. Now, I've probably described that, and people are like, huh?
I think people checked out for detail there. It's like, hang on a second, he's making this one up.
but essentially it was one minor cog in the big system that was bringing the whole thing to a halt. And that's where, like, and I did go to a physio. I went to a second physio. I went to a third physio. And lastly, I went to a sports therapist who had ran 20 odd marathons. It was like, it's just this one.
So like, your advice is go to a physio that's done running?
Not all cases.
Okay.
Not all cases. There are some fantastic physios. I just made 3 bad choices. And it's not their fault either. What they were giving me was theoretically correct, but it wasn't quick enough for me. You know, it wasn't. They were rebuilding the machine. I was like, listen, the race is in 4 weeks. I need this sorted now. You know, it's that's where I just found someone else who had carried injuries through races and was able to tweak and fix and tell me straight away, this is what's wrong with you. It made a difference for me. And look, there's probably people who are going to go and shoot me after this, but they're obviously runners, and otherwise they wouldn't be listening. And they may or may not agree, but I paid the money and I suffered 3 wrong choices. So it is. Look, I didn't mean to be controversial on it, but look around, talk to people like who have had experiences with physios, and I do think it's definitely one element that's a word of mouth. In fairness to physios, like if it only takes one bad reference and then no one's going to them, you know. So it is important for guys out there and gals out there to do ask other runners, who do you go to, because no doubt they have all been to someone. And then try and stay away from using physios in terms of work on prehab, work on strength and conditioning, work on the little things, put the tea towel under the knee, you know, do stretch, you know, like little things that can try and keep you out of this trouble.
We'll move on because we think we're near the hour mark already in this podcast. So there's a lot of Q&A and stuff. So we'll hit 3 or 4 of these and then we'll pretty much wrap it up. There's a fair few responses in that first part I didn't get to. So apologies if I didn't get a chance to read out your question on that one, but something a bit more lighthearted. At Owen.Casey asked, if you only could race one distance for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Only one distance.
One distance for the rest of your life, and what would that be?
Half marathon.
I've thought about that to start a question. I never got a real kick out of a half marathon finish like I have a marathon, so I'd go marathon. Even though I am better at a half marathon in terms of like my fastest half marathon is on the 1:32, yet my full is like is 3:30, like a full 2 hours, which doesn't make much sense. But the kick of finishing a marathon, I can't do 5 or 10. Like 10K is not a bad race. 10K would probably be second for me actually. Although I haven't really enjoyed a finish to that either. I just think the marathon is the right balance between achievement, putting the work in, that nice little finish line, you can go out for the rest of the day, whatever, and being okay at it.
Mine is pure laziness. I could rock up to a half marathon and struggle through it, get a t-shirt. Mine was not about pace, but no, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think for that level of achievement, for that level of that atmosphere of watching people going through some stuff and people doing it for different reasons, marathon is by far the best one. And not even to be a half marathon taking a handy is an enjoyable day, but like that, it's a long run Sunday. When you've done a couple of marathons, you've got this, you're about to do series of them back to back, and whereas, if you were doing 4 marathons now in the next couple of days, I'd be like, oh, like there's just something about it. There is something about that 42.195 kilometers that is just, yeah, it's just brilliant. And I think I'd agree with you. If I had to do one, it would have to be that. It was the same reason I walked by the Adidas shop and went, ooh,
Get your attention, yeah.
That feeling will never leave.
Speaking of marathons back to back, I have to give a shout out to another previous guest of the podcast, Darragh Bryan. He's doing 4 marathons back to back in Donegal. I was toying with it in August of this year. So if people had goals for more in the marathon, that I think it's the whole loop of Donegal. And one of the reasons I was thinking about it is because I've never actually been to the county. So I was like, oh, what a way to see it, doing 2 and 4 marathons around it in 4 days. And that was genuinely it. And I was like, I'm not going to say definitely not. It could be sold out when I do this podcast, so I could be talking about backside in that one. But I do have different goals for the year. Getting back to this, at B.Clark23 asks, what's your advice for running your first Dublin Marathon in 2024? And we're going to jump in the second part of that from at Joe Milton goes, do you think DCM route will change for 2024? If so, what do you think the route will look like? So first, your first advice, I suppose, one that we go back to listen to the one we had 16 weeks Dublin Marathon, where you talked a lot about heart rate training, which has been backed up by what some people have talked about in this podcast.
Yeah, like it's look, there's people out there that won't look at their heart rate and they try and max limit, and we've had some phenomenal athletes that have said, I don't care, I just train to what feels like. But for me, what took me from below average to average was heart rate training, purely because of the structure, purely because I was able to understand that my body wasn't under that much pressure. It was actually just all in my head. And that's one thing that slowing down to go faster was a big change for me. And it took me a long time to kind of stick with that first couple of weeks of, oh my God, I am so slow. And then I got to a point where it never got easier. I just got faster. And it was incredible, the difference. I was amazed, genuinely amazed with the difference it took with me. But it took a lot of consistency. And that's the one thing about heart rate training. It is pure consistency. And it's fantastic what you can do when you structure it well, and if you do get a good plan. But again, it is structure. People can do it off pace. People can do it off this. They can do it off that. It is one method amongst many. I just, from personal experience, gave me a phenomenal foundation. And would I use that for if I was going for a Dublin Marathon? 100? Yeah, I would. Yeah, 100%. In the last couple of years, I haven't. It's just been slog. It's all been pace. It's all been splits. Heart rate was best case scenario stuff. But if I was giving myself a good go at it, and I was wanting to see minutes, tens of minutes coming off a time, then that's what I'd be looking at. If I was a 4.5 hour and I found it really hard, I'd be looking at, well, let's have a look at heart rate training and let's see, where did I suffer? Is it just I can't go that fast, or was I just not built for the endurance element? Did it all blow up at 27k? So it's something to look at. It is definitely something to look at. There's a lot of science to back it up as well, and a lot of top coaches will say walk up the hill when you're on your easy run. Absolutely. Like it works.
Well, that's one of those things. You just hit the nail on the head there. It is to hit the hills in for your first Dublin Marathon, because it is hilly. Make sure you get the hills. We made that mistake before. Start slow, not the marathon itself, to build up to it. A half-hour run is going to feel like eternity right now. But as the marathon train goes on, you'll be wishing for a half-hour run when those add up to 90 minutes and 2 hours, which may seem impossible now. But time is it's just different when you get used to running those longer distances. So build it up. Don't add more than 10% to your weekly mileage, with your long run being no more than 25-30% the full one. Give yourself plenty of notice as well. Give yourself a good 20-22 weeks to get into running. Maybe not even a marathon plan, but give yourself a good half year for your first one, just to do a little bit of running rather than 16 weeks going from couch to marathon, which is a lot for that first one, because you are going to feel the legs. And I would do a little bit of cross training as well for days that you can't get out running. Just bit of yoga, bit of move. I wouldn't do yoga personally, but you should. A bit of strength training and just a small bit extra on top of it as well, and go from there.
And a good one, I think Westport marathon and half marathon is around 20th of April. It was last year. Like it's a good target for people who are kind of questioning, am I able? There is a half marathon in April to aim for. Like if you're in any way interested, and a few more coming into it. But I know it's an early one, and without having to travel. Okay, Westport is a travel, but without having to go abroad to look at a couple of things, there are other half marathons that pop up around that can just be a nice catalyst to start your year. Can be a nice little kick in the arse to just get moving towards something.
What it's not a question, it's more a tip that I really could have done with last May was at Dooley GJ. Use, I can't pronounce it, GEWOHL cream for ultras, and the week before brilliant cream for eliminating blisters. I know when I was doing the ultra, I saw people just having that cream inside the legs, feet, the works all over them, and it didn't suffer as much as I did. So that's going. But we'll wrap up the podcast in this one because at Ross Carr _ said, would it be stupid if I didn't ask? 'Tis the season. Die Hard, Christmas movie or not? Eric, I swear to good God, if you even say it's not a Christmas movie, I'm just going to edit it out and put my part in instead and say it is. So the floor is yours before I tell you why it definitely is a Christmas movie.
Well, this is coming from a man who started rewatching Band of Brothers as his Christmas movie. So the lads get stuck in the snow around episode 8. So to me, it's Christmas. But it's 100% a Christmas movie. Sure, he's carrying a present in the airport. Like, it's definitely
he's going home he's at a Christmas party. He's going home to see his other half of Christmas and try and make up with her and all the rest. It's a Christmas movie. There's Santa references and all the fucking thing. People keep coming up with similarities between Die Hard and Home Alone. And Home Alone is definitely a more violent Christmas movie. So why isn't Die Hard a Christmas movie? Yes, it's a Christmas movie.
I'm glad I'm not at home to have to watch all 5 of them again this year now. So
on that note, I better get some sleep, so I'll get ready to watch them this year.
But thanks to everyone who has reached out. Again, sorry if we didn't get to you. Sorry if this was a change of pace. We've interviewed some phenomenal people, so we have to kind of just check in and kind of. We like doing this tips into the new year, and people hopefully will carry more nuggets into the new year. But thanks so much to everyone who keeps reaching out. We'll have a look at our own plans now. Me and Sean have to look at our own plans for the new year and what we have in store for ourselves, because we can't be all talk and no action. So it's but thanks so much for reaching out. Overwhelmed by the number of responses we got, and hopefully we've covered enough to give some people something as they move into the new year.
Yeah, I can't say any better than that. We probably won't have a podcast next Monday being Christmas Day itself, but we will the following week leading into the start of 2024. And that is it for myself and Eric. Take care.
Happy Christmas.
Bye.